Good to go. I'd like to call this meeting of the Utility Committee to order. Do we have the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I thank everybody for making time. I'm sure everybody's lives are really busy. And to that, know that we're going to try and get through these agenda items as fast as we can. We do have a kind of a hard stop of 6 o'clock if we can hit it. So with that said, I will turn the floor over to Mr. Cooley.
Thank you. Item number one, capacity fees. So this started, just to give you just a brief background, when we were looking at serving water to the Fannin and Deagle property. A project to upgrade the booster station was started, and the idea behind that was to develop a funding mechanism in which the folks in that high-pressure district would basically, we would pay for the upgrade to the station based off of higher capacity fees. That has not come to light, and I am not 100% sure what we're going to do with the booster station as far as an upgrade yet, until we figure out some of our long-term goals on where we want to send water and things like that. So we looked at evaluating the capacity fees and how this started with the current capacity fee schedule that we have. For water and sewer tap sizes, the sewer charge is based off of whatever the water service size is. And years ago, this was established through a consultant, and I kind of went with the approach to figure out how do we get to these numbers. I could not find any rhyme or reason how the numbers correlated with each other from a change to a 3/4 to a 1 inch and things like that. Couldn't find that out. So I went through and got some information from some resources through our associations to kind of figure out how to calculate these from the ground up, and kind of got some logic and reason to kind of go along with some of this. So our current any changes to the capacity fees, we're only speaking of the 3/4 residential fee. I think we're respectable with 1 inch and above. I think that's where they should be. So for example, like the 1 inch water charge is $8,025. So I first looked at that and said, well, shouldn't a 3/4 be 75% of that? And it's not. So that's kind of where I trekked back to figure out how should these numbers work. So I used some information. I gave you a copy of my email. Exhibit A was basically correlating the pipe size, maximum gallon per minute, basically with a ratio based on the remaining capacity that we have left for the water plants and the sewer plants. So you can see Exhibit A basically calculates out to a water 3/4 tap fee of roughly $4,800. The sewer was $6,100. The sewer's higher because the sewer plants have we have 2 water plants, and that kind of changes the capacity. We have less capacity available at our sewer plant compared to the water plants. So those numbers on paper, okay, looks good, but then it's hard to justify why the $6,000 fee on the sewer, and really one of the focuses was the water. Exhibit B is looking at the math, basically taking unfunded projects versus sewer capacity at the plants based on an AWWA standard, and you're looking at a water 3/4 tap fee of $8,000 plus and a sewer of $9,000 plus. I think both of which would be difficult for some people to swallow. So our current rates, as they list now, the water capacity fee is $4,725. The equivalent sewer capacity fee is $4,095. I'm at a point with this to where I've looked at it, turned it upside down, and I think if we want to make a change for sake of reason and maybe even a practical approach, is to charge $5,000 for each. $5,000 for a 3/4 water and the sewer equivalent 5,000 makes for easy math for a $10,000 capacity fee for a new home in Pataskala, our service area. So if that's agreeable, well, that's where we're at with it. I just basically,
That's what
so
you're
if-
recommending we do?
yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
I appreciate all the work. It's only been like 4 utility committee meetings, but it's been probably 8 months
Right, sure.
worth of work,
Right.
right, because of
Right.
how we have them. So,
Off and on, yeah.
and I know that you'd come in and we would say, well, see if you can find a standard. And I know you went back and did that, and so I appreciate the work you've put in on it. I'll throw it open for questions if anybody has any. Andy?
So Nate, if you look at the 5,000 for each, and you look at our, and we didn't get to this discussion quite yet, but the budget portion for the water specifically, how does that? Have you looked at this at all to project a typical year of capacity fees? You know, for lack of a better term, I think I used serious trouble is the way I termed the budget for the water, the utilities. Just looking at the green line, the health line of the fund. How does that, have you given it any thought to see how this would affect by raising it $275?
Minimal.
I would think.
Minimal.
That's where I guess I'm
But
going
what-
with that.
And I'll even use the comparison. So what we've been doing over the past, let's say, 4 years is roughly 50 new customers a year. I'll give you an update. Last month we had 2, just to give you an idea.
Okay.
So part of this too is, I don't think that we could create a 3/4 residential fee to do what we would want it to do under any predictive scenarios now. So part of this was me just wanting to put this to bed. I'll
Okay.
be honest. Just saying, at least we could accomplish something and say it's, so,
So can I just to follow up? So really, you know, when we first started talking about this for capacity fees, we knew that the health of the 2 utilities or the economic health were bad and going downhill, essentially. And we talked about the capacity fees as a way to try to help those two funds. In essence, that's not going to be the magic bullet, and it's really going to be a rates issue that's going to change that. Okay.
and I would even say, even if we went with what AWWA has taught me, even us charging
Yeah.
8,000,
You can't even get enough from that. If you're doing 50, you're not gonna,
right?
It's not gonna bring it back.
But what I'm seeing now compared to last year, this drop off that we've had down to 2, I'm not sure.
Well, part of
I'm
it's
gonna
part of it's probably the developable area in what
That's
connected to our system.
Correct.
And then, because I don't think that there's a ton of I think when you look at where growth is happening, it tends to happen away from where our system is, at least now. Right? So, I get it.
And what this does is put us middle of the road as far as competitors. You know, we didn't want to be the highest, we didn't want to be the lowest. This puts us average Joe, essentially, when it comes to our competitors,
Or surrounding communities.
surrounding communities. Let's put it that way.
Okay. I just want to make sure.
Nope. One and the same.
can I ask one more question? Sure. So it seems to me, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Nate, on this, the water fund is in a lot worse shape than the sewer fund.
100%, yes.
A lot worse. So if you so I'm just throwing this out there as an idea, I think that the $10,000 number is probably a pretty good number in general, if you wanted to just use round numbers as a way of doing it. Would it make more sense to raise the water higher and leave the sewer alone? Would that make any sense?
Yeah, I think it would, yeah.
Look at the water capital also, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we're talking about the capital part of the fund, right?
Talking about capital, not operational. So if you look at the water or the sewer capital over 5 years, it's going down not as dramatically. So we may be able to do like a 550 and 450, but I wouldn't do it too much difference.
It's just throwing out an idea to try to help with it.
No, it's a
is,
great idea, but
It's
Mr.
the water
Haynes?
that's really a problem.
No doubt. Mr. Haynes?
I've been part of the conversation, kind of hit or miss some of the utility meetings, and I guess I'm not fully aware of how we got to where we're at. But I'm wondering, I guess, why we went away from the idea of increasing the rates, not the capacity, because the capacity fees are gonna,
Yeah, and I'm not, you guys, the electeds could do that.
it's not a
but-
steady source of income, as we were just looking at. It's not reliable, so it's not going to get us anywhere. It's kind of like cost of living, annual increase of business, right?
Well, I think I can give you my answer only to that, which is there may come a time when because that's the only way that the non-capital water fund can be fixed, right? We can't transfer money from the sewer to the water, and we can't. I don't even think we can transfer money from the capital water to the operating water.
Not without legislative action, and it would have to have.
So
There's not much there to transfer.
well, let's just say we had some insane balloon amount in the capital part, and I think we all know that part of the money that had come into the capital fund was arbitrarily used to keep the water rates for the people in the village artificially low for a long time, and that also so. Without dancing around the question too much, I believe that is ultimately what we'll have to look at. But we also have some debt falling off in certain upcoming years, and if that debt falls off, do we have a possibility of maintaining the rates at exactly what they're at? I don't know. But I don't think that, I don't know, does anybody else want to feel differently than me?
I think that pretty much sums it up.
So that's the answer. I think we know that it's something we will have to look at. I just don't know it, as the actual operational side of the budget flushes out. How is that steep red line that Andy talked about? Is it going to go out a little bit further and then debt falls off, and so we don't have to worry about money that we're borrowing, and so the fund becomes healthier? Or can we, if you look at what a typical water bill is, could we say that for some strange reason the capital side begins to reinflate, begins to get a revenue stream for some reason, whether it's debt falls off or whatever? At that point, can we raise the water rate $1 but drop the CIP $1, so citizens see no significant change in their water bill, but the rate has been raised? These are all questions that we'll have to tackle in the future, I think.
Well, and I'll just I will, until things change, I work under the umbrella of the city, but our utility service area is a village. And we're very unique in the water side because our village has 2 water plants. There's where the imbalance comes from. But the trouble is, I have a plant that is only, well, it'll be 10 years, coming on 10 years? 2018 would be 10 years. That we're paying debt on until 2032 or something. So it's not like I can just shut that off and have good conscience about it. So it's kind of like, well, what do we do? And there are some aspects where maybe we mothball plant 1. Maybe that helps until we need to fire it up on a high usage day. I don't know. But that's part of that too, to why there's this imbalance of water to sewer. So, one option is charge what we do on the water side, what we do on the sewer, and that'll kick up. But I don't know how popular that would be. We would go from, an in-town of $4.60 to $7.80 some cents per thousand. Add the CIP, so you're looking at roughly $21 per 1,000 gallons of water and sewer. Multiply that times 5, you're $100+ bill for an average family. So, but yeah.
That may be a better answer than mine. I don't think that's telling.
We cannot fix our financial concerns by increasing the water capacity fees right now. Unless we had 1,000 homes in the pipeline, then we could say, yes, now let's make a specific, but we don't. Like I said, the nexus of this was getting Fannin and Deagle and saying, all right, what are we going to charge to make this so we do not have, or current
Pump
customers
station.
have to absorb that cost. And now that's I'm like, well, now what do we do? So I didn't want to go through all of this and just say, leave it alone. So that's why you got 5,000 apiece. Like it, love it, hate it. That's what I got.
So you don't have any heartburn with 45 and 55?
I do not.
I would
do
say
not.
the committee should recommend that if that's the way they feel, and we'll get it ready for council on Monday for our first reading.
That's fine with me. Anybody want to make a motion to that effect?
I'll make the motion. I'm going to make the motion that we recommend to council that the capacity fees for 3/4 inch water and a 3/4 inch sewer are changed. Water to be $5,500 for the 3/4 inch, and sewer to be raised to $4,500.
Second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Could we have the roll, please?
Aiken?
Yes.
Hayes? Yes. Walther?
Yes.
Thank you, Nathan, and thank you for all the work you put in on it.
Thank you.
Moves on to 2018 budget initiatives.
Okay, yes. We're going to have a meeting Wednesday, but just wanted to kind of prep you a little bit, some of my thoughts, where we're kind of headed a little bit. So right off the bat, my first budget initiative, if you call it, is a slight staff restructuring. It's not going to result in additional bodies or adding to the workforce. It's just kind of restructuring with the staff that we have. If you recall, we used to have in our department, the way the hierarchy was kind of set up is I had a water utility superintendent and a sewer utility superintendent, of course, a billing manager. We had a vacancy with our sewer superintendent, and then I collapsed that duty all under a single superintendent because that gentleman at the time got the proper certifications we needed to go that route. So historically, it used to be the water and sewer guys were kind of separate, but now I've kind of funneled them all under one working supervisor. What I would like to do in 18 is revisit filling another supervisory role, but one that I started in 2013 with a utility system superintendent. So what I would like to do is have a superintendent over all 4 of our plants, and then a superintendent out basically everything outside the gate, just to kind of balance the workload a little bit, and also utilize folks that are hungry and want more responsibility, and I can kind of use what we have. So basically the change would be basically implementing what we got approved through the PBR, the Public Board of Review back in 13 to recognize this position. And then I have an internal promotional opportunity available. I've got the person that we've worked and groomed and molded to be that person if we go that direction. So while the budget still includes the past utility superintendent, we wouldn't be asking for more money other than just a restructuring. So that's one of the thoughts and plans that we have moving forward. I wanted to let you know, per the Stantec hydraulic modeling study, one of the projects that we wanted to do was the Creek Road water line project. The water budget cannot afford that, but we'll still keep it in the hopper in the event that either additional funds are collected from future developments or we work with a developer to pay for some of this infrastructure improvement. We will continue our GIS project. What we're doing now is citywide spending $40,000 a year in technical support and basically working with consultants to help us continue to build our system. Zoning is paying $10,000 a year, general administration is paying 10, water fund is paying 10, and sewer fund is paying 10 as we continue to build this. And at some point, maybe before the end of the year, we'll bring out the tablets or pull it up online so you guys can see what this tool is helping us with out in the field and why it's important.
Maybe add that to a future utility committee
Yeah,
meeting.
please. That way you guys can see, and even if I bring in the tablet or we put it on the phone so you can see the importance of this tool for us. And updating as we go through with new subdivisions, instead of this going into the corner, the proper, they were getting them scanned in, and then we're funneling those to the consultant to add to the database, because none of us currently in the staff can do that, right? I can. I surely can. Meter replacement fund, we're going to continue to do that, but this year it's a $20,000 reduction, basically because I feel that we've kind of made great stride in replacing our 20-year and older meters, and instead of setting aside 40,000, 20 sewer, 20 water, we're going to take that down to 10 water and 10 sewer just to maintain our replacement inventory on meters and radio transmitters. And then the other large project, cash fund, is improvement project at the wastewater treatment plant. It was originally set as a $2 million price tag. What I would like to do is go with a phased approach, $500,000 a year over the next 4 years, utilizing cash funds to pay for needed improvements, with a focus on improving our treatment facility and preparing for potential phosphorus discharge limits. So one of the reasons I want to do cash upgrades on that is, of course, we currently have a loan out with the wastewater treatment plant, and I don't want to put a loan on top of another loan that cannot. So what I would like to look at in 2018 is work with a treatment consultant to address some of our shortcomings at the facility. One of them being our bioreactor system was originally showcased in 1985 as the end-all be-all for all treatment plants in the state of Ohio, and currently our system, there's only 3 like ours. What the consultant has done in the past 20, 30 years is kind of totally reconfigured the system to be a little more reliable. So what we utilize is surface mixers, mechanical mixers. The problem with our loading at the facility, it does not provide enough oxygen needed for proper treatment. This was again realized this summer when we lost one of our motor drives. We did not have major effluent violations, but our ammonia has creeped up higher than we traditionally like to see. So one of the phases of this project is to look at additional air, dissolved oxygen into the bioreactor. Another facet of this project is to, all these projects will have to be engineered and approved by the EPA. We are looking to upgrade our biosolids pressing equipment. One of the issues that we have with our facility, and I'll openly say the press that we have is not an appropriate press for municipal biosolids, at least our biosolids. The unit is designed to collect treated, partially thickened, digested sludge, and we run it through a unit that coagulates with a polymer and then a pressure disc screen rotor that basically tries to squeeze the water past these screens and kind of concentrate the solids into a 14% product. With any type of press equipment, you're going to have something known as filtrate or centrate. It's the byproduct of the pressing equipment. You're always going to have some seep through or blow through. Our current filtrate is 3,000 milligrams per liter. That is very, very high, and that is also bound with an additional 9 to 20 parts per million of phosphorus that was bound in the sludge that we're putting back into the process. So we're constantly chasing ourselves every time we press with trying to catch up on solids production, but also removing the phosphorus that we once had captured. Now we're putting it back through. So what we've done this summer is done some trial runs on some conventional belt filter presses. The presses that we like give us a filtrate of 50 milligrams per liter or less with a phosphorus level of 1 to 3. So it's manageable. So with those two assets of this project, looking at additional air and adjusting our side streams in the plant, while it's difficult to quantify now because there are no test procedures to do the kind of air that we would need in our system, but with those two fixes, instead of having 60% phosphorus removal, I hope we can biologically totally remove it all and not have to go chemical addition. But a part of the design review is to plan for, let's say that doesn't work and I have to do chemical addition, let's go ahead and design and get it ready to go. So 2018, do some design work, get some approval going, and maybe see if we can't do the improvements to the aeration system. And then in order to accommodate the press that we need, we have to look at a slight building addition to fit that unit. And a part of that would be to leave space for chemical addition if we have to. And then rolling into 2019, we would look to make a purchase on a new press if our current press holds out for another year. Sorry.
That's okay.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. That's all right.
a lot
Do you
of stuff.
anticipate that we could sell the old press?
I do anticipate that we could sell the old press. In fact, the press that we have now is very popular with breweries and Anheuser-Busch for spent grains. It seems to work very well in food processing, not so much in municipal biosolids, or at least straight domestic biosolids like we have. So yes.
And is the cost of the building included in your $2 million estimate?
Yes, that and the press and chemical tanks, and if we have to go that route, so yes.
Other questions?
No, that was really
Nate,
fascinating.
Nate, I'm looking in your budget, and I see where you have 500,000 for 18 and 19, but I don't see it for 20 and 21.
Yeah, well, that's my hope in 20 and 21. I don't have to ask for any more money.
I see.
Because right now, and so you know too, part of this study that we're doing for the EPA that I'm required to do before December, I have to submit it by December. We are also test piloting some chemicals now in our facility, just to see what type of results and what type of feed rates we could expect from something like that. I've experienced a lot of things here that's made me scratch my head, but I would be willing to put a couple paychecks on us not having to go chemical removal if we move forward with the aeration and the new press, or a new press, and we would just have that as a fallback if something went sideways and we have to always meet a 1 milligram per liter. So, I don't anticipate asking for money for those final 2 years. That's my hope and plan. So, and we've got a press that we really like, but it will not fit safely in our current building. So part of me, I'm like, oh, let's cram it in there, but we got to make this be a 20, 30 year investment. And so you know that the press that we have now was purchased in 09. They came to that conclusion.
Just because I may not exactly understand part of what you're telling me the problem is. When you press all the water out and you get the cake, the product, right?
Yeah.
Some of the water that escapes during that pressing, you send back to the front end of the treatment,
Yes.
and that's what's extra high in phosphorus because it snuck through there.
Yes.
And so now you're not only fighting. Okay, now I got it.
The phosphorus level, since we don't have a whole lot of, well, we don't have industry, we just got some commercial users. Our phosphorus on the influent ranges from 4 to 6 milligrams per liter. I think if we just had to deal with that, we'd be okay. But because of our side streams, this recycle that we're chasing our tails on, it's consuming, any free oxygen in the system that otherwise would be used for the influent phosphorus, and we're just falling behind. And so the treatment plant, I'm not trying to whine or cry about it. We do well with what we have. But for example, I will use an any activated sludge system. People smarter than me years ago determined that a healthy dissolved oxygen content level is 2 milligrams per liter. We're lucky to get that when it's 30 degrees cold outside. Mm-hmm. So that's where we have a unique sludge, and just like the human body too, one of the first things that first responders or medics will give them oxygen. Same thing with our facility. It is often a cure-all for issues, but I just can't get a big back truck and pull it up to the plant and blow it in the tank, so.
In previous meetings, you've talked about the EPA is going to do this.
Yeah.
Are we still at that phase?
We are.
Do you really, how certain are you that they're gonna?
That's something I'd put a paycheck on too.
Okay.
That, at least my understanding with the folks that I speak with at the EPA, we will have a permit, we will have a discharge level on phosphorus at our next permit renewal. Our current permit expires in 2019. So going into 2020, we will have and part of that is, and people have worked to challenge the EPA on these rulings and how they establish stream criteria. Our our biggest issue is we currently discharge into a low flow stream. We are a great contributor in that stream. Now, mind you, we have very excellent water quality going there, but it's just not apparently sterile enough. I don't know what. If it was a higher flow stream, we might not be talking about this, but it's where we're at, and that's why we participated in the ammonia study with Great Lakes Environmental Science, basically to say that our footprint, what we do discharge in the stream, is basically undetect, 80 yards down from our outfall. So we're putting a better quality product out there, but right now, like if you look in Toledo, where the Maumee River turning green, every time something happens with phosphorus, they want to squeeze the treatment plants down instead of maybe going a traditional route with some other surface practices. So, so I would be, at least in my experience, when they run you through these technical feasibility and capability studies, you're basically self-reporting what would be the cheapest alternative. You know what I mean? So we'll have all the numbers and say, well, you can do that, can't you? And so if I'm going to be kind of hand-tied into doing something, I want to do something that's just not going to add a chemical to the problem or add a chemical and just say, oh, everything's fixed. Let's try and fix it the right way and kind of fix some of the deficiencies in the plant that should have been addressed when we did the last upgrade, in my opinion.
Comments, questions? Andy?
Just have an overall budget question. Nate, we had talked about, under the Streets Committee, we had talked about holding off on some paving for a water line project that you wanted to get completed. I think it was on Mill. Is that correct?
Yeah.
I noticed that's not in the budget. Did that get done?
In the budget?
No, did the water line
Oh,
get
no.
completed?
No.
What we need to do on Mill, I really think that we could do with the combination of in-house and contractor work, because really what needs to happen on that portion of Mill, we already have a 10-inch water main that goes from township to main that's connected into our new main. But also what they have is an old 6-inch that came from Wood and would go up Jefferson. So what we would like to do is cut and cap the old 6-inch, because the line that goes up Jefferson is also tied on to the 10-inch. Why they didn't eliminate that 6-inch? Well, it's because all those houses on that street are tied on that, including a 2-inch line that they tapped off of that 6-inch to run like towards the corner of, like across from the pool entrance.
Yep.
So what we want to do, I've got our in-house shop drawing, basically retapping all those services, and we got some price points on it. So we're looking at $7,000 in parts, roughly, to do this, and then contractor, if we get them in the loop, and I think we could do this project for less than $20,000. So it's one of those two. If our numbers look better on capacity fees, maybe we can save some money to do that and just kind of get that project rolling. Because it's not going to take a whole lot, but it would be enough that we're going to need some time on it, at least a week and a half if we really get busy.
Okay. I was just talking with, thinking about streets also. So trying to balance that out.
Yeah. It would be one of the, well, you look at it, it's like, why didn't they do this when they, so it's hanging on my grease board in the office. It's just a matter of, honestly, I was really hoping that I could try and pull it off this year as we work through the budget. I really hoped, like, come July, I could look and say, oh, yeah, we could do this. I don't think we can we can't pull it off this year. So,
Well, does that mean, and I guess it's fortuitous that Alan's here as well, we're not going to, and I guess
That's kind of my question. We have a Band-Aid out there right now.
so, yeah,
It's not, it's fine. It's working fine. But that's not to say it will last through the winter. Our road Band-Aid.
oh, well, and there's certain things you don't talk about, but part of this too, that Band-Aid that you had to work on is probably from our last main break out there on that old
Wow.
6-inch.
That was part of it.
Part of it.
So part of
Absolutely.
our philosophy with going ahead and getting a parts list together, be a lot easier if we had a situation happen and then just bring in a contractor for 48 hours and do it then. I hate to, well, at
Fine,
that
I
point,
just, you know, as we're looking at budgets, that's kind of my question. I didn't see it in there, so
yeah,
I wanted to bring it up
yeah,
to find out why we weren't tackling it.
that's because it's one of those that I hope we could do with
Okay.
regular funds.
I got you. We won't talk
And even
about it.
if, well, and with our, possibly towards the end of this year with our purchase order with like Ferguson and HD, you know, if we haven't blown through all that parts inventory, we'll address that then and get some of these items on the shelf. And then maybe 18, all I have to do is pay a contractor to help us out. And by that, I mean somebody else doing a lot of the digging, but we got our guys in the hole,
Sure, I understand.
so.
Okay, that answers my question.
Any idea on schedule on that? Don't want to throw you under the bus, but I'm looking to do that.
I got no schedule.
Alan didn't put me up to that. I was.
Right.
That's a December 31st job.
See?
Right.
That, see? Well, it would be one of those that, let's talk after first quarter. See?
Well, I'm just wondering, is it worth holding off on the paving project for a couple months to give you
Well,
some
I'm
extra time? Because Mill Street is, of course, we had it for this year, but performed it, or didn't do it. We didn't
If
include
you
it.
would do it next year, what time period would you think?
Well, we wouldn't do it any earlier than June. I mean, it's probably going to be July, August by the time we got a
Right.
contractor in.
Well, let's see, let's evaluate in March and see where we're, if numbers are up as far as tap fees too. And that's something we could do with Jamie too, you know, if we get, well, at this rate at 5,500, we would need what, four water fees, basically. We could set those
Cover it.
aside and say, put that right towards this. If we already have the parts, and then it would be coming to you guys for a purchase order. But, you know what I mean, like, because it's over the 10,000 limit, and kind of go from there.
I
But
just
if
didn't
it's
want
an
to slip
emergency
through the-
situation.
Well, for parts, you don't have to come.
No, but I mean, if,
Right.
from,
Contract.
The contractor.
if it's over 10, which I would anticipate at least. But if we get into an emergency situation, be like, hey, we need money, can we go ahead, 5 o'clock, set it aside, we bust it out then.
So moving on to Southwest Licking Community Water and Sewer District. I know we only have
About 18 minutes,
18 minutes
left, yeah,
left.
so. I know where you want to, this may be,
Well, where we are with this, if you don't mind me jumping in.
Absolutely
is that we are 3 years in the making with this. We've come up
Or-
with every idea, or more, come up with every idea we can. Where we essentially are, we've got an attorney that is working for Fannin Deagle now. And I've had good conversations with about it. And the question that has been asked is, first of all, is the city willing to provide sewer to Fannin and Deagle if the district provides water? The district certainly has every intention to bring water down to Fannin and Deagle. That's fine. Nate and I have talked about this several times. I don't think we have any heartburn about providing sewer to that area. It doesn't do anything for a water fund, but why wouldn't we? It's the easiest way to do it for the developer. It's not going to be as costly for the developer. And as part of that, also, you know, there's been discussions about swapping areas and changing this, and let's just stay where we are as far as service areas. And everybody provide what they are currently providing. We have the shared service area in the corporate park. They do water in Fannin and Deagle. We do sewer. And if there's any other areas like this, we address them as they come up and talk about, is there this joint venture to do it? Seems like the most reasonable approach, in my mind, to get this done.
Andy?
Why wouldn't we? mean,
I agree
other
with you
than
totally.
Using capacity that we don't, I mean, there are citizens, I mean, they're
Right.
annexed, so why wouldn't we?
I have no obligations or no objections to doing it.
Okay, just didn't,
None whatsoever.
I can't come up with any either.
No, there's none.
No, I would agree, 100%. I mean, what are you
Yeah,
going to do?
If we get the opportunity to serve sewer there, we'd jump on it in a heartbeat.
Mhm.
And I think basically where we are with this too, I think that's good. I think that'll be a nice step in the right direction, working with these guys, but there's really nothing else for us to, I guess, stamp in stone and say, this is what we're doing now. maybe contrary to what you may have heard or been told, there's really nothing else for us to be had here right now. If they're going to bring that water line down, we'll deal with that when that happens, and just leave things as
And
is.
I think we're
and go
okay
from
with
there.
that.
Well, and I mean, we certainly had meetings, informal meetings, if you want to call them that, where they made it pretty clear that
They're bringing it.
no matter what. So, okay. I mean,
If this committee is okay with moving forward, I told the attorney I'd call him back tomorrow and let him know what the thought was, but I see no reason for us not to go ahead and do that for the betterment of the community. I just don't.
I see no downside.
I would agree.
Yeah, I don't think I guess, it doesn't look like we're gonna make any headway with the water, so it's not like we're giving up a negotiating chip, essentially. So, there are citizens, they're Pataskala citizens, so why wouldn't we support that and move forward?
I agree totally.
Me too.
23.
Okay. I will report to council on that fact. I don't think that's a motion and a vote, but when I give my report, I'll make sure that council knows that if they have any other follow-up questions, they can ask them that night. Other than that, the agenda is over, but there may be some other items that people want to ask, or maybe I appreciate the information on the budget. I probably have some budget questions, but I'll probably save mine for Wednesday, if you don't care.
And I'll also say, if anybody wants to meet ahead of time, come in and ask questions, we're more than happy to do that.
And I'll be here for the next 2 days, so I may just schedule that for,
That'd be great.
I'm giving a speech to children. To school.
Oh, that's right.
Andy?
I guess the only other thing under other business, I going back to this rate change issue on the water. I don't know if it's worthwhile it took a while to get to the point where we got to on the capacity. I think in looking at the budget for this year and future years, it's a train that's coming at us. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I'd hate to pass that on to the next committee without at least starting some discussions about it. I feel obligated to do that as part of this committee. Is there anything that we would want to, I'm not going to propose necessarily a step to be made, but at the same time, I think there should be something that we've identified this as a problem, and whether we like it or not, rates have, I think it goes without saying, rates have to change.
Well, I would say we have to look at them.
So I guess what I'm asking is, do we want to start that process?
Before it gets handed over to the next.
Yeah, exactly, or are we going to hand it over to the next committee? Which I just feel like it would seem, if we have time to start it, we should start it.
I have no problem, maybe,
I recommend starting.
I have no problem starting it. We'll probably have one meeting in December anyway. Maybe we schedule another one of these for November. And maybe that's Nathan shows us the GIS and we talk about rates. And that way, whether, no matter what happens with elections or whatever else, there'll be a bridge. And the next utility committee hopefully will have one or more of these members on it. That would be a bridge. Also, the work has already started and they hit the ground running with little bring people up to speed kind of a thing come the beginning of the year.
Be good to get it started.
So, yeah, I would agree. I will, do everybody feel comfortable shooting for like mid-November for that? I mean, roughly a month away. So
Just let me know. I have parent-teacher conference.
we'll try to tie it down. Maybe I'll tie it down at the first meeting in November.
I guess the question, Nate, do you need any, I don't think we're going to direct you on anything. It's kind of the same evaluation in my mind as we did for the capacity fees. Okay, what do we need to do to make this work? Okay, maybe that's out of the picture or out of the question. Where do we scale that back to get this line to stop, diving so quickly to the abyss?
Yeah, and it'll help too with the budgeting sheets or whatever we want to call it, to model this too, to say, all right, I mean, don't shoot me, and maybe you could tell people you talked me down. What does a 25% increase look like? 5, 10, 15, just what does a 10 look like, you know, on the water side? Just to work through it and say, all right, now let's boil this down to a number. What does it look like per 1,000 gallons?
Right.
And kind of compare if that is something. I'll still, you know, beat the drum that even at our current rate, whether you're in town or out of town, you're still paying 2 cents or slightly below 2 cents per gallon of water that you purchase from us. So put that into perspective. I like to throw that out there.
And I think the first starting point is looking at that line, seeing what it would take to stabilize it, and working backwards from there.
And to that end, possibly having, well, it may be too early to have Mr. Nicholson in, but
He will certainly be
help.
in running numbers for us, so.
he's the number runner.
Get those on the graphs. We
Yes.
started that with the sewer when we were talking about something, you know, what's this look like? And part of the process too, even the exercise going through to try and get a balanced budget is, you know, by default sometimes I want to look at what we've done, you know, halfway through this year. You know, when we start writing the budget, we've got stuff through July, you know, under the belt, so to speak. So you kind of estimate what is December going to look like, and then if it's something like a consumable good like diesel or gasoline, my automatic thing for planning for next year is, well, let's plan for a slight increased cost to us, you know, and those are some of the things, the variables that do happen, whether it's chemical increase, you know, goods and material, you know, hydrants aren't getting any cheaper, valves aren't getting any cheaper, especially now that we can't use, you know, lead in the forging process, but, or even staffing, not to say that that's a bad thing. There is cost of living increase, you know,
Sure.
insurance, all of it plays into it. So what is a healthy range? And I'll throw this out there and I'll quit talking. With the water tower that needs to be painted,
I was going to ask you about that, so.
I'm at a point to say, well, where does that come from? And I think that's where we need to answer some of these questions to say, you know, do we want to model ourselves in doing, do we set up a rate structure to say, all right, we have, you know, after all our commitments and our debts and everything is being met and holding some rainy day funds back in case of an emergency, you know, do we just do $200,000 to $300,000 worth of cash projects every year and work through that instead of taking on long-term debt again? You know, I don't know. Yeah, some of these things are.
Well, there's other questions I have for you in that process that include stuff like, what does the money that you did not put into the pump station?
Oh, it's still sitting there waiting for us.
I know. So what when you dump that back in the bucket, or you say, well, I know I budgeted for 650, and that's what was making the line go down. To be honest with you, I can just upgrade the motor on the pump for 100.
Right.
Now 550 dumps back into the pot. Does that change the slope of the? Does that let us, you know, look at obviously that might go from 10 to 7 in your 2510 model. I'd like to know.
Okay.
So those are the kinds of questions that I think I will ask. And you can very well just look right at me and go, no, we absolutely have to do that. I just pushed it a year. So be it. Right?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that.
All right. Is there any other specific business for the utility committee? Not appearing, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Kathy, can we have the roll?
Hicken.
Yes.
Hayes. Yes. Walter.
Yes?
Thank you, everybody.
Tonight's the spaghetti dinner. Don't forget, Battle of Broad Street till 7.
Battle of Broad Street.